Dr. Paul, we are so delighted that you're with us tonight. When Sarah and I got the water, we would have given anything to have had a retired dentist like you with huge medical experience come on and share the clinical studies, the medical research that has been done. So thank you so much for your time and for this fabulous webinar tonight. Dr. Paul in Arizona, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. This is really exciting. Yeah, I did practice dentistry for about 18 years, and you know, it's really funny because I know we have our little chit chats, and I know there's several people who are in here going, "Hey, when's this webinar starting?" It's starting, folks. This is what we do. We kind of chit chat and keep it casual enough that hopefully you'll just take in what we have. This is not a high pressure. It's not a serious, you know, intense kind of thing. But we do hope you'll take notes tonight because we're going to talk about some of the things that I've learned in my years since I retired, which was almost 6 years ago. And I'm always a study guy. I've always been a study guy, and let's check things out. And so that's what we're going to be talking to, about tonight when we talk about this thing that I call the line that can change your life and the lives of those you love. It's about a line in the history of our company, Enagic. And so I wanted to find out a little bit about the audience that's here tonight. And so I thought, let's see who's here. Now, I put out a poll there before we start. And this is not personal. I have no idea who clicks what. The software simply will add up the total. So I'm going to ask you who are attending if you will just click all that apply to you right there, and we'll give a little bit of a poll going here just to see who's in the audience. This is nothing more than like raising your hands, only I can't see individual hands here. So we got a little bit of going on. So thank you very much. I always like to wait till we get at least 3/4 of the people voted, and we're almost there. You guys are really great tonight. So this is good. All right. You did very, very well. Let's close that. I'll show you the results. Let's see. Man, we have almost a full score tonight. Okay, it looks like, let's stop it right there, and we'll share the results with you. And you can see there's a couple of new people in here tonight. 2/3 of you have seen this before. 3/4 of you drink Kangen water every day, and 15% either short time or not regularly, and a few healthcare professionals. So that's great. Thank you for giving us that kind of sample of our audience. And let's go on and talk about this line that can change your life. And I got thinking, what would we stand in line for? It's something we value. Sometimes it's fun things like an amusement park, or the latest food that we like and everybody's into, or maybe it's the latest technology, standing in line for the new iPhone or something like that. And other times it's things that aren't so pleasant, but we obviously value them. In the Great Depression, they stood in line like this for just subsistence. And in the Great Recession, we put it inside and threw some chairs around for some lucky people who had to wait for hours. But there are other people who actually will do things proactively. I had the unpleasant experience of having to stand in line for hospital outside in the heat in a major hospital in Mesa, Arizona. And it wasn't because she wasn't sick. It was my friend that was, she died 8 days later. But the crowd was so big, the demand was so high. And as things get that way, there are some people who do things proactively. So there are people who actually will pay money, get on a plane, make a trip, go stand in line at that grotto in Lourdes, France. Why? Because the rumor is they have healing water there. If you drink that water, you tend to get better. Well, guess what? It's not the only one in the world that people go to. They stand in line in Mexico. They stand in line in Germany. And what's really cool to a guy like me is that the researchers will go find out what's going on over there. Because us nosy people believe that questions are the answer, and if you want a better answer, you just have to ask a better question. So we're constantly thinking, well, why this? What about that? And so these researchers started looking at these things several years ago, several decades ago, and they started trying to figure out, why do these places have reputation of magic water, miracle water, healing water? And it was because what they found when they started researching was that the one thing in common with all the springs around the world was active hydrogen in the water. And today we call it alkaline water. I went, that doesn't make sense. The more hydrogen, the more acidic something is. And then I found out there was something a little bit more to it. I started finding out something that I never even learned in medical school. I started finding out the chemical splitting of water. And I went, wow, I didn't realize it could fraction so many different ways. So I'm not going to get into that technicality tonight, but I'm going to show you one, because I looked at these different countries' research, and I found that there was something amazing that the Japanese had done. And so I want to put up this little disclaimer that we're not going to talk about anything to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease tonight. We're going to show you what I found and make it in a way that hopefully it will be relevant to you, right? Because the question that these guys and ladies asked, was, can we duplicate what Mother Nature gave us? Can we make this hydrogen water? And they found they could. They started with magnets trying to split it, because water is polar and it will split that way. The Russians did that. And then they found that they could do it especially with electricity. And by controlling how they applied the electricity and what materials it flowed over, they could literally split the water molecule. And this was what I didn't understand. Active hydrogen happened when they literally split a hydrogen off of there, and the electrons from the electricity followed it. And now you have two fractions that have really incredible uses. So it wouldn't work on mineralless dead water like reverse osmosis and distilled water. That kind of water is for machines. That's good for machines and really bad for us, both of those. But they found they could do it with tap water once they filtered all the gunk out. You know, tap water's got a lot of junk in it these days, but if you filter that junk out and leave the minerals and the micronutrients in, you can split that and do exactly and in more control than what Mother Nature gave us. I thought that was fascinating. So tonight, we're going to talk about some of the things I found in looking at this that's relevant to you. This is clinical stuff, what people felt, what happened to their blood work, what happened that could be measured and seen and felt. And so I want to throw one more poll out here real quickly. Again, this is just a general info thing. Click all that apply to you. I should have put self on here too, but yourself, your parent or child, your spouse or sibling, something that's directly related to you, not your cousin, not your, best friend. Tell us what affects you and your family. And you guys are a great voting audience tonight. I love this. The percentage of voters gets up there really quickly. And just so you know, boy, is it leading the way tonight. Blood pressure has always been number one, except for one night when we've done this, and allergies was a close second. And it's like we've got a little different mix of an audience tonight, because allergies is actually coming in fourth right now. Kind of interesting. So change of the mix. Okay, there we go. We look like we have plenty of voters. Thank you for being so responsive. I like that. And here's what the audience looks like tonight. Blood pressure still number one by a significant lead. There's something about controlling our blood pressure. Mostly it's high blood pressure, but some people have, hypo. They have low blood pressure. And, look, 2/3 diabetes, 2/3 heart disease. Well, here's what you're going to like. So thank you for sharing that information. And here's what you're going to like, because the first thing I've got to present is called Clinical Improvements Obtained from the Intake of Reduced Water. It was a presentation given 21 years ago, so it's not even new. The research was started in 1985 by these cardiologists, Dr. Hayashi and Kawamura. And they gave this water, this reduced water, that's one of the research names for this hydrogen and electron water, and they gave it to them to drink, and their inpatients, they cooked with it. And here's their report. They said that, let's see, tonight we have 69% of our audience who say they're affected directly in their families by diabetes. And they found that it lowered blood sugar levels. It helped their diabetic patients just by giving them this water to drink, and some of them to cook with. It was only their inpatients they could cook for. Isn't that amazing? And 69% of you are affected by the very first slide. I hate to tell you the next gross part of that, but the severe diabetics who are about to have amputations, things like that, and I've showed you, these are really mild pictures, I hate to tell you, but they found that they could even improve the peripheral circulation for those who had diabetic gangrene, which usually leads to amputation. And they found that instead of having to amputate, if they did it all, it was maybe a toe or two rather than a whole foot or half a foot. And I was like, I'll take that improvement. So see, we've affected 69% of you listening tonight very much like this. And just in a couple of slides. This one else they found, decline in uric acid levels. For people who you know that have gout, we didn't ask that in the survey, but gout is a disease where uric acid builds up, if you see where my mouse is rolling, as solidification. It's crystals that form around the joints of the body, usually the big toe, but it can happen in the hands and anywhere. And they could lower uric acid levels with this water, and the crystals would dissolve back out. Problem solved. Wasn't that interesting? If you know somebody who has that, you actually have a chance to help them by letting them know this information, because they may be taking a lot of drugs that will have side effects that may help reduce uric acid, but why not do something? We're going to find out how safe this water is. That's a big issue for me. Improvements in liver function exams they reported for people with liver problems. How about improvements in stomach ulcers and stopping them becoming bleeding ulcers, which can be life-threatening? Wow. You can do that. Here's our big one. 85% of you tonight said that you have somebody directly in your family who suffers with hyper or hypotension. And they found it didn't matter which way you were wrong from normal, that you would go more toward normal with this water. Isn't that cool? Because it changes the biochemistry of what's going on in your body. Same thing with allergies. Look, it doesn't matter what kind of allergy you had, and there are several different skin ones, irritating runny nose to life-threatening asthma. You could have an improvement and a change toward it is what they reported. Isn't that cool? And so how about they had some people who had to have gastrectomies or stomach removal, and they would get persistent diarrhea typically, and they found that if they gave them more water, they would have less diarrhea. They also found that people who had to have their abdomens operated on, normally it'll cause paralysis of the intestines, and intestines are supposed to move, so they'd move faster after the surgery. And this is what I really got into. You could change the whole next generations, plural, because if the mothers drank this water, because it was perfectly safe, their babies would come out better birth weight, less jaundice. That yellow symptom where the bilirubin levels, the liver's all messed up, and they come out with yellow skin and yellow eyes, and they have to recover. They're born and they have to recover from an illness. And so they could change the next generation, and it was perfectly safe for the mom. And they had better birth weights, like I said, and the moms didn't have morning sickness. I thought, wow, is that a benefit or what? And you on this call have the opportunity to change somebody's life and to help them just by giving them this information. Now, we ask you to take good notes, but just remember, you don't have to remember all this medical stuff. Just bring them along, and we'll share the medical information with them. So I said, what other things have been studied about this water? And so I'm going to put up some titles of research papers that I found. And hey, screen capture this next slide, and you can go look these up yourself if you really want to read them. I highlighted the parts of the titles that matter to us. Hydrogen water prevents atherosclerosis. That's heart disease. That one affected 62% of you tonight. How about electrolyzed reduced water? That's another name for this stuff in the research. Reduce the damage caused to red blood cells for our poor kidney patient friends who have to undergo hemodialysis every few days, every other day typically at the most. How about molecular hydrogen prevented the degranulation of mast cells? I read this and I went, oh, that explains the allergy thing. The granules of mast cells are histamine. We take antihistamines to stop an overblown allergic response, and so you could take the water and it wouldn't have this overblown release of granules of histamine in the first place, so you don't have such a big allergic response. Wow, that's cool. And, 46% tonight are affected by allergies. That's the lowest I've ever seen of an audience that has allergies directly in the family. So you guys are pretty good with the allergy thing. Hydrogen restores learning and memory deficits. Molecular hydrogen protective against Parkinson's disease. It's biologically safe. No mutation of genes, no toxicity to genes, and no toxicity to the mouth where we take this water in. You see, and all the names that they call it, hydrogen-enriched electrolyzed water. This changes water. It changes the molecular structure and therefore helps all these things in your body. It's still water. How about they found a fraction that they could kill bacteria with? split your tap water and make something that'll kill faster than bleach. Isn't that cool? It's not the same water. It's the opposite. Remember, they split it. And so I thought, wow, we can make multiple benefits out of just our tap water. Pretty cool. So in my research, I learned about Otto Warburg. He figures out the metabolism of cancer cells, wins a Nobel Prize for it, wins a second one in the 40s, but Hitler wouldn't let him go. He's a German researcher. And it's still relevant today. And so what he said matters to us now. This is cancer, folks, and this is affecting only 23% of our audience tonight. Congratulations. You know, that we're not talking to a high cancer affected audience tonight. That's great. But here's what he said. He said the main cause of cancer is the replacement of the respiration of oxygen in normal body cells by the fermentation of your blood sugar, your blood glucose. If you don't understand what it means there's a biochemical pathway to process your blood sugar and took a wrong fork in the road, and you got cancer instead. Here's what he found, that normal cells use glucose to produce energy. That's what we're supposed to have, to live and breathe and think and move, right? And it uses oxygen in an alkaline environment to make that ideal for normal cells. That's the most profound thing he said, in my opinion, because it tells us what we need to do to be healthy on a cellular level. And then he says cancer cells break down your blood glucose to do the opposite. Very little energy and lots of lactic acid. These are chemical tests, folks. They measure for these molecules, and they do the routine, and it's like amazing. We've known this stuff for almost a century. This is not new news. And yet somehow it missed us. We don't know this stuff now, and it's still relevant. Now, is he the only person who wrote about acid and alkaline? No. We're throwing a few books on your screen right now about people, doctors, who wrote about acid and versus alkaline. Look at that first quote. Removing acidic waste is more effective than diet and exercise for your overall health. It's true. If the chemistry of your body is not so effective, you tend to get diet and you tend to get sickness and aging faster and all those things. Look at that third book, Alkalize or Die. There's a way to get some attention. Name a book, Alkalize or Die. Well, as I read more and I read The pH Miracle, the bottom book there, I found that Dr. Young tried to do this with an alkaline diet. And it's really interesting. He said, you know what, in America we eat 80% acidic foods, and we should be eating the other way around, 80% alkaline foods. Have you ever tried that pH diet, that pH Miracle diet? It's really tough. And so it's interesting that he is now saying it's the water you intake that makes the big difference, because couldn't get everybody to go for that hard diet to live by. And so no matter what we eat, we produce acid as a byproduct. And the more acid we have, sickness and aging. But luckily we were created with an offset mechanism. I love how we were created. We have these magnificent little alkaline minerals that keep us from going into acidosis. And we have them in abundance to offset all the acid we produce in the act of living. But guess what? Unfortunately, it wasn't made to stay with us forever. As we get in our older years, this research came out of San Francisco. Those things decline until we literally get acidic and die. And so that book, Alkalize or Die, had new meaning, not just a catchy way to sell a book. So I looked at life and death. Who lives the longest? 1995, the Japanese lived longer than any nation on earth. U.S. males, number 25. We're kind of an indulgent country. We kind of eat whatever we feel like, and we have anything we want, almost. But we can't keep doing that. So I thought, well, we spend a lot of money. There's a little bit more preventive thinking going on. And so 15 years later, Japan's still holding steady at number 1, and we've dropped to number 38. What kind of a trend is that? That's a horrible one. So we haven't quite got there with the prevention idea, because what we do instead of having health care is sick care. No matter what we do, we spend all this money, we're less healthy than we used to be, and our kids and grandkids are projected to die at earlier ages than we are now. That stinks. So we've got to do some thinking and maybe do something a little different. So I asked the question again, what would you stand in line for? What do you value? Water? If it was this water? Well, guess what? A few weeks ago, I was down in California at the Enagic headquarters, where you can see they actually have machines there. These are these water processors that can split the water molecule. And so they're drinking out of those hoses that you see on top of the machines, and then there's another hose that splits the other fraction and is basically running down the sink. But both of those fractions are useful. They give that away as a public service. I'm standing there waiting to fill up my little drink bottle just to get a drink, and I didn't want to cut the line, so I waited. Half an hour later, oh, good, the line's getting shorter. I may be able to get a drink here. Half an hour later, oh, now the line's longer. It never let up. It just doesn't do that. People value this. They value it. How did they come to value it? Well, it was because of Mr. Oshiro. He was a Sony dealer, Sony Walkmans, electronics, that kind of thing. And in the 80s, he saw a line around a hospital. People were valuing because they were standing there with their water jugs and bottles and things. And he saw that, and he asked a great question to get a good answer. Why are they doing that? He found out that they had a refrigerator-sized ionizer in there that cost a few $100,000, and they were first filtering the water, get all the junk out of the tap water, and they don't have near as much of a problem as we do over there for the junk in the tap water. But they were still doing that, filtering it and then splitting the water molecule, taking the two fractions and giving it to people to benefit them. Well, being an electronics guy, he knew that, in the 80s, they had taken mainframe computers from room size down to home size. And guess what? If you lower the cost of something and lower the size and make it personal, he reasoned people would buy it rather than stand in line. Then they could have all the water that they wanted, which was beneficial. Pretty good discovery for driving down the road and seeing that line. This is why I call it the line that can change your life, because that line changed all of ours. So he buys the company, and the rest is history of the making. And we're part of it. We're telling the story right now. That's all it is. So let's talk real briefly about this Kangen water. Why is this so unique? There's several properties of it depending how you split it. Remember, we can control the electricity and the materials that it flows past as it's flowing to us, and then it makes a real difference. But three of the properties are life-changing. Okay? Here's the first one, antioxidant. We've all heard we're supposed to take antioxidants, right? We don't know why necessarily, but, eat your fruits and vegetables, drink your juices, and take your pills. And some even waters have antioxidant written on their label. They're usually not by the time they get to you, by the way, and I'm going to show you why. Antioxidants are nothing more than transfer of electrons. It gives us life. The reason we even exist and move and think and breathe and talk on the phone is because we have transfer of electrons going on all the time. And so in the act of living, we breathe oxygen. Remember, Dr. Warburg said that's what normal, healthy cells do. But oxygen travels in pairs, and when one jumps on one of our red blood cells to take the roller coaster ride through our body and keep us alive and healthy, the other one loses the shared electron, and it becomes what we know as what's known as a free radical. It's so electrically and chemically unstable, it has to have an electron. And so it'll steal one from whatever it's next to. Okay, now I'm stable, but now you're not. And the next one, and it's this badward, downward domino effect. That's what we call degenerative disease. It eats us. It eats the electron out of our cell wall. Well, we've got trillions of cells, right? We can give up a few. Yeah, that's the act of living, but why rush it? Why rush aging? Why rush degenerative diseases? So if we put an electron back in the equation, that's your antioxidant is an electron donor. Now we neutralize the free radicals. And since free radicals are constantly being formed, we constantly need antioxidants. Now you know the story. It's just an electron thing. You can measure electrons. They're negative charge. Take a little meter. We have meters for measuring everything. And guess what? You measure the things that we drink, and almost all of them have a positive charge. They are magnets for electrons. So when we put them into us, even if we get wet, we get hydrated, they take electrons from us. Is there something you can do? Green tea is a well-known antioxidant. How about cod liver oil? That one's even got a higher measurement, negative 200 millivolts. Okay? Most of the fruits and vegetables fall in the 50 to minus 100 range. And guess what? Way out there on the left, you can take your positively charged tap water and turn it into the most incredible antioxidant on the planet, because you split it and drink the fraction with the hydrogen and the electrons, right? Electron donation. That's antioxidant. That's cool. Guess what? I'm going to show you a little video right now. Give me half a sec to switch over here. I'm playing director as well as presenter here. Give me half a sec. And I'm just going to show you a real quick clip from this video by our friend Bob Gradelli. You can see it at kangendemo.com. And I'm just showing the end of it, and I've edited it really short so you'll understand. He's measuring a water called Alive, 400-ish millivolts. Now he's got Gatorade, near 400 millivolts positive, Sprite, almost 400 millivolts, right? Even tap water. Your tap water, 320-ish. And now he measures his Kangen water that was that same tap water, but now it's split. Look at that, negative 420-ish. Isn't that amazing? That's the same tap water that he just measured that was over 300 positive millivolts, just like that. And I said, you can now take this and have all the water you want at your own tap. Mr. Oshiro's plan was brilliant, because that, in my opinion, is the biggest factor of this water. A lot of people call it alkaline water. Guess what? You can make alkaline water really simple. Put baking soda in your water. It's now alkaline, but it doesn't have these other properties. Let's talk about alkaline and acid for a minute. Okay? Research has shown that we should drink water that's alkaline. 8 to 9.5 was the range that seemed to give all the greatest benefits. And so we can do that. We can make alkaline, but also antioxidant water at the same time. So that's great for our insides. Guess what? When you split that water, instead of running it down the drain, you can actually collect it and wash your face and hair and skin with it, because our skin is acidic. It loves acidic water on the outside of us. Isn't that cool? How can you tell if something's acidic or alkaline? Well, you can use these little drops I just popped up there. And again, our friend Bob did that with all these waters, and you can compare them to a color chart, because yellow and orange are acidic, green's neutral, blue and purple is alkaline. And guess what? There's the Kangen water. If you look at Dasani and Aquafina, look at their color. They're acidic. They're great for the outside of your body. Wash with them if you can afford it. Great. So here's what else. He found out that when you take our bulky water, where it's all attracted to each other, you can actually change it, right? If you ever accidentally overfilled a glass just a little bit and formed a dome, well, gravity still works. It should flow over the edge, but instead these water molecules love each other so much that they hang together. But if you run it through one of these processor machines, like you just saw at California, where they had a few of them on the counter there, you now change the attraction of water molecules to each other, reduce them. And the research calls this microclustering. Why is that relevant? Well, because nuclear magnetic resonance shows that it'll get into your body, into your cells, 600% faster than normal water. Isn't that cool? So you can take your tap water and split it and make it get into your cells and hydrate you faster? You sure can. And because it will get across membranes that much faster, it takes your byproducts, your waste products, acids, out of you, and it's like having the garbage man come to your neighborhood every hour rather than once a week. Really clean, right? So Kangen water that's microclustered is a powerful solvent and transporter, and it means transporting the junk out of you. Talk about detox. And that's what happened. Is there a little test we can do to show that that happens? Yeah, there is. I'm going to show you another little video here. Give me a sec to set it up. And I want to show you this because it's a little test with tea bags. Anybody ever tried to make tea with tap water? Well, that's what he's going to do at room temperature. Here's what he's doing. He's pouring tap water over a bag of green tea. And now he's going to take another bag of green tea and put it in a cup, and he's going to grab the Kangen water right next to it. And he pours it over that. And if you count this thing out, it's about 9 seconds. I never stopwatched it, but it's about 9 seconds. And guess what he got? Tea. And then he's going, okay, well, it's used up, right? Well, no, it's not. Same tea bag will make another cup of tea in less than 9 seconds. And it'll make a third. And if you watch the video, if you go back and watch that video, you'll be amazed what happens there. So it's a really big deal. You may not think so, but it shows that this water gets in past the cell walls into the plant and brings out the chemicals that are tea in seconds, right before your eyes. This water doesn't even have to go through the tubes of your body. Normally you swallow it down your esophagus, into your stomach, into your intestine, then it transverses into your blood, and then from your blood it goes to your brain. Nah, this goes through barriers so fast, it doesn't need to rely on the tubes of your body. You simply get this stuff rushing to your brain and measured in seconds, not even minutes, just like you saw there. See, this is relevant. You can hydrate your body and clear the junk out like that. And so some people can actually feel a change in minutes. Okay? Some people don't feel a change at all. Remember we said that the diabetics got their blood sugar measured lower, blood pressure measured lower. You may not necessarily feel a change or not. It doesn't mean it's not working. And so this is why you pick which way works for you and how you want to help families that you know. You can now tell them this info. Is there clinical evidence? Sure, there's a lot of it. How about Dr. Shinya, the guy who helped develop the colonoscope with Olympus and then developed the technique still called the Shinya technique for removing polyps and cancers in your intestines without having to cut your abdomen open? He used the scope. Well, 90 days later, I sat and watched him for about an hour and a half, show these before and after slides, and they were all about 90 days. And guess what? Look at the difference. I think we can tell without being doctors which one's the better one to have. And he absolutely insists on his diet. And it's not a real magical diet. It's like eat a lot of brown rice, fruits and vegetables, a little bit of meat and